70 million people died during the Second World War. 13 million innocent civilians died in the German invasion of Russia. It's not even possible to comprehend these tragic numbers. All these war victims died never really understanding the truth behind the physical war, but a simple faith in God was enough. The deeper secrets of World War II were hidden because they were too incredible for the masses. The spiritual nature of this war was going on since the time of the patriarch Jared, the sixth generation from Adam. 99.9% of the historians who recorded what happened during the World War never realized the truth at the very core. Yet there were a few who glimpsed an incredible truth, so amazing that they themselves could not even comprehend it. Others who gazed on incredible revelations were afraid to release the truth, some fearing ridicule because the readers would never understand, thus suppressing it from the masses and educational institutions. It was too bizarre, sounding like something out of a science fiction movie. Yet these hidden secrets were too important and immense for us to ignore, and began leaking out through confiscated Nazi diaries, Nazi scientists, agents who gazed at secret documents, and witnesses who talked before taking their secret to their graves. Adolf Hitler had access to a higher intelligence than mankind. He explained it himself as divine voices. The German technology of UFOs is only now being understood by the public. Why haven't the average citizens of the 21st century heard this alternative version of World War II? Hitler may have answered this question himself.
The real destiny of man is something the average man could not conceive, and would be unable to stomach if given the chance. Our revolution is a final stage in an evolution that will end by abolishing history. My party members have no conception of the dreams that haunt my mind, or of the grandiose edifice of which the foundations will have been laid before I die. The world has reached a pivotal point and will undergo an upheaval which you uninitiated people cannot understand.
We've uncovered a never-before-seen secret location that can possibly explain the mystery between the Nazis and UFOs.
It was something unconventional, some kind of a spacecraft.
After the war, many of the German scientists went to New Mexico and became the basis of NASA. One of the key scientists, Hermann Ohlberg, said we were helped by people from other worlds. Did Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party have help from a higher knowledge than man? There are scholars and believers who now think they were guided by the alien grace of our modern UFO phenomenon. They insist these aliens have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. It's my opinion they have been here since the time of the patriarch Jared, as depicted in the Bible and the Apocrypha. They are not aliens from another planet, but are the children of fallen angels destined to live in a spiritual dimension on Earth. Today we call them demons. Many officers of Hitler's staff are on the record saying he was possessed by demons. Hitler himself describes it as divine providence. At the age of 17, he first heard their voices. In his book, Mein Kampf, he describes how a voice saved his life in a battle during World War I. The voice told him to get out of the trench, and seconds after he got out, a shell burst in the very spot, killing all those in the trench. He was now fully convinced he was divinely guided, and began his plan of ruling the world. If this theory is correct, we now know where that plan came from. It's also an explanation of why and how their technology surged ahead of the entire world. Hitler repeatedly escaped death, repeatedly escaped assassination attempts, and repeatedly attributed his miraculous survival to divine providence and the voice, which preserved him so he could fulfill his mandate and his destiny. Hitler's good friend August Kubizek also heard the voice which spoke through his mouth. As Kubizek later explained, it was like Adolf was possessed by a demon. The following is a quote by Gregor Strasser. Listening to Hitler, one suddenly has a vision of one who will lead mankind to glory. A light appears in a dark window. A gentleman with a comic little mustache turns into an archangel. The archangel flies away, and there is Hitler sitting down, bathed in sweat with glassy eyes. Francis Poncet, ambassador from France to Nazi Germany, said he entered into a sort of mediumistic trance. Hitler was especially afraid of this entity at night. He would come for Hitler while he slept and dreamed.
The German Vril Society is a society interested in what the Vril is. Vril is a notion of a superpower going beyond atomic power, something that has the ability to do all kinds of fantastic things, including those attributed to UFOs. At the end of World War I, where Germany was in abject defeat, it was of interest to German militarists as a possible source of power. The mediums in the Vril Society were saying that this force could be used to power craft.
There were mediums that were doing exactly what?
Okay, generally speaking, mediumship is thought of in terms of communication with the dead. There's another group of mediums who channel material that is related to extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial beings, and it claims that it comes from the science of these beings, and that if we adapt that science, we will learn a great deal about higher technology than we have. Of course, the Nazis, being interested in power, quickly bought into that, and the more desperate the war became, the more they wanted to do aircraft in tune with these mediums who were transmitting this material. They seemed to grasp the shape of these things, which was saucer-shaped or cigar-shaped, just as UFOs that are seen today, but they could never get the idea of the power that was involved in these things, because apparently, even though they used the name Vril Society, they never understood what the Vril actually is.
The exquisite medium Maria Orsic was the leader of the Vril, the beautiful young ladies of the Vril Gesellschaft. They all wore their hair in long horsetails, contrary to the popular short bob fashion of their day, claiming their long hair acted as cosmic antennas that helped facilitate the contact with extraterrestrials. Could the Vril women's long hair be the same attraction the fallen angels had with the daughters of men in Genesis chapter 6, and also the Book of Enoch? According to the legend of the German Vril Society, a fateful meeting was held in 1919 at an old hunting lodge near Berchtesgaden, where Maria Orsic presented to a small group assembled from the Thule, Vril, and Black Sun societies telepathic messages she claimed to have received from an extraterrestrial civilization. One set of Maria's channeled transmissions was found to be in a secret German Templar script, unknown to her. A second series of transmissions appeared to be written in an ancient Eastern language, which Babylonian scholars associated with the Thule group, recognized as ancient Sumerian. Maria Orsic, along with Sigrun, another of the Vril Society's female mediums, began the task of translating these transmissions and discovered they contained instructions for building a circular flight machine. Upon studying these otherworldly esoteric designs, Dr. W.O. Schumann and his associates from the University of Munich realized the channeling actually contained viable physics, and over the ensuing years construction was initiated to make these flying machines a reality. By 1922, development of a working prototype was underway. Meanwhile, Germany saw the inception of the NS Party and Adolf Hitler's rise to power, fueled in part by the utopian visions of a new world order, inspired by the Thule and Vril societies. By 1934, the first manned test flight of the RFZ-1 took place. These ideas go hand in hand with Hermann Ohlberg's statement, "We were helped by people from other worlds." However, these beings were not extraterrestrial, they were interterrestrial. The Nazis were obsessed with advancing their science by any means possible. The Nephilim spirits, as demons now, took full advantage of their desires, and they were using Hitler and the Nazi Party to gain rule over the world. They started feeding the Nazi Party the technology to leap above the other world powers. And indeed, they were 25 years ahead.
Shiva, The saucer rose to the ceiling and remained there. I thought it was something extraordinary. It would never have crossed my mind. You know, I was only used to the idea of normal flying.
Young Radu had just witnessed the world's first flying saucer, and this is how it worked. If you draw air down onto a curved shape like a saucer, it follows the surface of that shape. By literally sucking the air from above his saucer so it flowed round and underneath, Coanda found he could both lower the air pressure above and raise it below, causing the craft to levitate. This became known as the Coanda effect. It's the principle at the heart of saucer flight.
It was a very simple idea, but of course you had to have thought of it in the first place.
There were as many as 15 prototypes that they built, tested, discarded, and went on to the next one.
Yes, I saw it. For me, it was something exceptional. Round with the central cockpit made in plexiglass, and with jets all around it that made up the means of propulsion.
Luigi Remersa had seen the world's first production flying saucer, and it was a Skoda.
Well, you see the pilot drawn in the cockpit. The pilot would drive the disc standing up.
This is one of the men who actually helped create that flying saucer. His name, Andreas Epp. Epp had invented a disc-shaped flying gunnery target and sent the prototype to the Luftwaffe High Command, suggesting it could be adapted for manned flight. In an interview recorded before his death in 1997 and never broadcast until now, Epp described how he began to suspect his designs had been stolen.
I kept hearing reports that people in Prague were working on the construction of flying discs, and that progress was being made.
Furious over being sidelined, Epp drove to the Prague test ground to find out what was going on.
I had my Leica A camera with me. Then suddenly I saw a flying saucer. It had no wings, absolutely none. I took a photo and wound on the film, but it was already directly over me. Then I took a second photo, and I could see it was a flying saucer.
It actually flew and flew pretty well.
This is what the German saucer looked like. It was based on the flying saucer principle, the effect discovered by Henry Coanda, whereby the ship created an area of low pressure above it and literally sucked itself into the air. But it combined this with other new technologies, such as the helicopter and the jet engine. It was fast, versatile, and could potentially carry a heavy payload of bombs underneath.
These saucers worked in one sense almost like a helicopter in that they had rotating vanes. The vanes would rotate underneath the saucer and were powered by a jet, the same jet that moved the saucer forward, would be directed up to spinning these vanes to give it lift.
They were to be used as a bomber. Every machine built in those years was a war weapon. What was to be the final battle of the Third Reich?
There is an overwhelming amount of evidence of a German flying saucer. There is also much evidence and a paper trail to prove the Americans and Russians had successfully created their own saucers after the war. Perhaps the crash at Roswell was indeed a flying saucer. Los Alamos, White Sands, and Red Canyon are all in the area of Roswell, where the German scientists had been stationed. This would account for a small portion of UFO reports, but they never mastered the propulsion engineering. Did the Nephilim spirits give this technology to the Germans, disguising themselves as aliens from another planet? The majority of Hitler's staff were not convinced. They are on the record saying Hitler was possessed by a demon.